Good to be with you. I'm Tony DeCopo in Minneapolis. The major breaking news right now. Minneapolis on edge, Iran on fire. Let's go home. First, protesters marching through the streets, chants of ICE out of Minnesota. And at the center of it all, Renee Nicole Good, shot dead by an agent here. The mother of three, her family called her Nay. Tonight, her father tells me about the loving, bubbly girl he'll never forget. While the Trump administration argues it was all justified, what J.D. Vance said late today. We're also on the streets of Minneapolis and the block where it happened. Barricades in every direction. And Mayor Jacob Fry, a day after demanding ICE get the bleep out of Minneapolis, calls the White House narrative about domestic terrorism, quote, BS. He'll join us live. And happening right now in Iran, extraordinary protests break out against the regime. The internet down, massive crowds of demonstrators take over Tehran. What President Trump said today about the potential for a U.S. strike if Iran kills protesters. We'll have a live report.
Live from America, this is the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopo, reporting tonight from Minneapolis.
Good evening again. The eyes of the country are all right here on Minneapolis, where that 37-year-old mother was shot by ICE just 24 hours ago. We've got a team of correspondents on the ground tonight. We're going to be live with them in a moment and live with the mayor as well. But first, we know more tonight about the ICE agent who pulled the trigger. This was not his first altercation with a vehicle. Now his decision to open fire on Renee Good is under FBI investigation. But tonight, the administration is already and loudly backing his actions. The governor of Minnesota, meanwhile, insisted this state be part of any investigation, claiming the FBI has blocked them from accessing evidence in the case. And today, we also know more about Renee Nicole Good. Her father told me today by phone she was loved by all, a warm and witty kid who cared about all living things. And as an adult, she published poetry and taught English and had only recently moved here to Minneapolis to rebuild after the sudden death of her second husband. To family, she was known as Nay. And Nay is who this city is mourning tonight, as I learned firsthand on the street where it happened.
Look at these barriers, man.
You see the barricades first, the plywood and debris blocking the street where it happened.
So you got some scooters here. A television.
And you notice the handmade signs, too.
You see F ICE on the sign over there. ICE are terrorists here.
As you make your way to a growing memorial, flowers and candles for Renee Nicole Good. This is where, in the dark this morning, we noticed Tyrese, who asked us not to reveal his last name. He was home Wednesday when he heard gunshots and ran out to find chaos around Good's car, as he showed in this video.
This lady got blood.
Tyrese says the woman with her face smeared with blood, crying for help, is Good's wife.
Can I go check a pulse?
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician!
I don't care!
In another video, a bystander claiming he was a doctor offered to check Good's pulse.
That's her, y'all. ICE done killed her.
As paramedics arrive, ICE agents attempt to disperse the growing crowd. Tyrese was still trying to make sense of what he'd witnessed.
What kind of answers are you looking for?
Man, that man need to go to jail forever. You just shot somebody that wasn't doing nothing but recording y'all. Like, you shot somebody for that.
What do you think about what the federal government has said? She weaponized the vehicle. It's an act of domestic terrorism.
She weaponized the vehicle. Hell no, I don't believe all that. She didn't weaponize.
Many here felt the same way and stayed through the night in support.
I do not know what else to do except for to be here.
These mourners, too, asked us not to use their full names. And though they called for protests, they also pledged calm.
We want more people out here. Yeah. If you're watching this and you've seen the video, come out.
Down the block, we spotted a young man from Michigan carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, saying he'd arrived to protect the city.
I'm here to make sure Minneapolis doesn't burn to the ground this time. This isn't 2020. We know there's people paying to do that. We're not going to be divided. We're going to be unified. We're going to stand strong, and that's why I'm here.
While the FBI investigates, the message for ICE, at least from the people here on Portland Avenue, could not be clearer.
What do you think it's going to take for this community to feel like back to normal?
For ICE to get the out of here, excuse my language, for ICE to get out of here, for sure.
That kind of language, that kind of rhetoric echoes what we heard from the mayor of Minneapolis just yesterday. We're going to talk to him in just a moment about all the rhetoric on all sides. But we're going to turn to the protest a moment longer here in Minneapolis and all across the country tonight. Our chief correspondent, Matt Gutman, with that part of the story. Matt, good evening.
Good evening, Tony. As you have seen today, there are multiple protest sites across the city, in fact, across the nation. Another major march planned here for Minneapolis tonight. And what you're seeing behind me, this face-off between protesters on one hand and those federal officers on the other, has been continuous since 7 a.m. this morning.
Behind a cloud of gas and a burst of pepper balls, federal officers surged into a crowd protesting outside a Minneapolis federal building this morning. The first protest of the day here after the shooting of activist Renee Good on Wednesday. The shooting spawned protests across the country, including in New York, Miami, and Detroit. But today, Minneapolis boiling over.
Just now, this crowd of several hundred people has crossed the street. That is the Whipple Federal Building.
Among the protesters, mothers, grandmothers.
People can't go to work. Kids can't go to school because they're terrorizing people.
And first-timers like Patrick.
Even though you support the country and you support the military, you're ashamed of what happened yesterday. And
absolutely, and I'm ashamed of ICE.
On the other side, we saw Border Patrol assembling. Then pepper balls fired point blank. It triggered a shoving match.
Right now, somebody threw a snowball, and these Border Patrol officers are surging into the crowd to try to grab this person. Right there. Now they're firing what appears to be some sort of a stun grenade. These Border Patrol officers have gotten themselves surrounded by this crowd. They're now trying to break through the crowd to get back to... We just got pepper ball, but they're trying to break through the crowd to get back to the federal building, which they just did.
At one point, protesters refused to disperse, sitting on the road.
Okay, look, that woman is getting, oh my God, dragged on her face.
Later, we caught up with Patrick again.
What did you think when they surged into the crowd and detained those people?
I really hope that both sides of us can be peaceful and not resort to this intimidation stuff. As an American, I have a right to protest.
Now, we have reached out to DHS for comment, but did not receive a response. And we've been hearing a lot about this city being a single spark away from exploding in protests. But organizers with whom I've been speaking are saying that with those federal agents and officers masked and some of them heavily armed, many people out here in the streets are simply scared. Tony.
Yeah, those masks raise a lot of questions. Matt Gutman for us. Matt, thank you very much. Breaking news right now. The FBI says 2 people have been shot in an incident involving a Customs and Border Patrol agent in Portland. Both victims in the hospital right now. We don't know their conditions. We're going to turn now to Nicole Skanga, who's got the latest on the investigation into the shooting that sparked those protests Matt was just covering. Nicole, good evening to you.
Good evening, Tony. That sweeping federal law enforcement presence here in Minneapolis is growing even bigger. CBS News has learned that more than 200 U.S. Customs and Border Protection personnel are now in the Minneapolis area, bringing the total number of DHS federal agents to roughly 2,400, with DHS considering sending hundreds more.
The federal agent who fatally shot a woman Wednesday morning in South Minneapolis belonged to a specially trained tactical ICE unit. Multiple sources confirmed to CBS News. Jonathan Ross has served at ICE for over a decade and is based in Minneapolis. During an ICE operation last summer in nearby St. Paul, video shows Ross being dragged by a suspect during an attempted arrest. These images from court documents show his injuries, requiring 33 stitches. While this latest incident is barely 24 hours old, top officials have already weighed in.
She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself.
This was an act of domestic terrorism.
I found it, to be honest, the department's official statement and the secretary's statements were really irresponsible.
John Sandwig is the former acting director of ICE.
Candidly, it defeats the entire purpose of the investigation.
Will this investigation be viewed as credible by the public?
I think there are going to be large segments of the public who don't view this as credible. I don't blame them.
In cases like this, state and federal agencies work through the investigative process together. Today, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension says they were informed by the FBI that state prosecutors would not have access to the investigation.
Minnesota must be part of this investigation. These are nonpartisan career professionals that have spent years building the trust of the community.
Current and former ICE agents I've been speaking with today say they're concerned about the growing surge of personnel here with no de-escalation in sight. They say it's not a matter of if there is another incident on the streets, but when. Tony?
Nicole, thank you very much. Vice President J.D. Vance today called Renee Good a, quote, victim of left-wing ideology. It follows Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey calling the narrative of the shooting in self-defense, quote, BS. And then there was this comment yesterday.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
And Mayor Frey joins me now. Mayor, thank you very much for being here. I know it's a real tough situation. You've called, as we just heard, for ICE to get out of here. ICE clearly is not going to get out of here. So what happens next? How does this get better?
Well, look, right now, our first priority is to keep the people of Minneapolis safe. And we know that the underlying intention of ICE is not safety, it's not reducing crime. What it is to cause chaos and disruption in our city. It's clearly they want to deploy additional military resources, and we're not going to take the bait.
I'm well aware of the role they play in having a city that is on edge and then reacting, but I'm curious about your role here as the mayor. The rhetoric we just heard, other things you have said. You've now got protesters in the street saying things like Nazis go home. How are you helping the situation calm down?
What I appreciate about this situation right now is we in Minneapolis are all singing with one accord, which is, one, we are going to stand up for our immigrant community. Two, we're going to keep people safe. And three, we're not going to take the bait. If you've watched how a lot of these protests have carried out, this is not some repeat of what we saw in 2020. What we see is that people saying, hey, hang on a second, ICE wants us to take the bait. They want us to screw up, do something wrong, and then ultimately see even greater military presence in our city.
But we've seen some skirmishes. The city is on edge. So proactively, what are you doing to restore calm? We're looking for some leadership here. I hear it from Americans up and down the aisle. And specifically, we heard from the border czar yesterday, Tom Homan, that he wants you to open the jails, that the way to make this situation safer for his agents and for your residents is to allow ICE into the jails. Why don't you ask the mayor, or the sheriff, rather, to do it?
Sure. The cities don't run the jail. The jails are under the purview of the sheriff. And at the same time, there's not a lot of confidence in this federal administration that they are going to do the right thing, either by our immigrant community or, perhaps more importantly, under the Constitution of the United States. What we see that they are doing right now is just going out on the street and without discrimination, picking up both Latino people and Somali people, throwing them in a car, and we don't even know where they're taken.
So you will not let them into the jails?
We're not making any decision in live time right now on that topic, but here's the thing. If you look back to the Obama administration, obviously they did work with mayors, chiefs, sheriffs around the country. There was that kind of trust built in. Why? Because they didn't create these BS narratives that we're seeing already exactly like this one, where something horrific takes place. They, from the get-go, say this is domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism, give me a break. This woman was trying to leave.
Yep. Mayor, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know you're very busy tonight. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. What happened here in Minneapolis yesterday is bringing back memories of another high-profile incident in which a civilian died at the hands of law enforcement. Here's Jonah Kaplan.
Distance-wise, George Floyd Square is not even a half-mile away from where a federal agent shot and killed Renee Good. But for George Floyd's aunt, Angela Harrelson, the shooting hit too close to home. George Floyd, Renee Good, what's the common thread?
They weren't treated like human beings.
The circumstances surrounding both controversies are very different, but both Floyd and Good's death were captured on cell phones, clips that went viral almost immediately, generating very different reactions. Why do you think the reaction, though, to Renee Good is not as chaotic, not as violent? to what we saw 5.5 years ago.
The fight is in here always. The fight has always been. We're just being strategic, but we know what we have to do. You know, we know what we have to do.
Another reason things might be different, so much has happened here in the last 6 months. This community is still grieving the shooting deaths of 2 children at Annunciation Catholic School. There was also the assassination of state Democratic lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. Minnesota is also reeling from that billion-dollar fraud scandal, where federal prosecutors say nearly 100 suspects stole taxpayer money by billing the state for nutrition, housing, and behavioral health services that never actually happened. Lisa Damath is Minnesota's Republican Speaker of the House.
In Minnesota, when you look at it, this has been a time like none other. Something that makes Minnesotans stand apart is when we choose to, we can pull together.
Despite that optimism, we still know that fraud storyline. It's not going anywhere today, of course. The vice president announcing a new assistant attorney general just to cover fraud.
Jonah, thank you very much for tonight, for all your reporting here from Minnesota. Really appreciate it. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, live from Minneapolis. The breaking news right now, Iran on fire tonight. Protesters filling the streets. The internet cut. President Trump, in an interview with conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt, again threatened to strike Iran if it stages a bloody crackdown on nationwide protests, now in day 12 and growing in size and intensity. The latest now from MTS Tayeb in London.
Tony, good evening. Well, what began as a revolt over a collapsing currency and rising prices has morphed into nationwide unrest with dozens killed and thousands arrested. Iran's theocratic regime has even cut phone lines and the internet across much of the country as demonstrations grow into the tens of thousands. Now, security forces have been confronting protesters in several cities and towns, firing tear gas, while this online video shows crowds ripping up an Iranian flag. All of this is happening at a time when the regime has never appeared more vulnerable. And if history is any guide, leaders in Tehran can still crush the crowds, but it cannot crush the reasons so many have taken to the streets. Tony.
We'll be right back. There is a problem tonight, 250 miles above Earth, an unspecified medical issue involving one of the astronauts aboard the International Space Station. NASA isn't saying who, only that the astronaut is stable. But the crew will be heading home in the coming days, more than a month earlier than planned. We'll be back in a moment from Minneapolis with some final words.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Freshpet. Healthy food fresh from the fridge.
We're back only in America. There is so much to say about the last 24 hours, but sometimes what matters most is what is yet to be said at all and what we all still need to hear. By now, we've all seen the videos. Renee Good is alive in those videos, behind the wheel of her SUV, her 3 children expecting mom home again soon. And we've seen the freeze frames, too. We've heard the political warfare, the clashing declarations about what happened. And unfortunately, we know the ending for Renee Good. Nothing is going to change that. Yet what we have not yet heard is one another. I spoke to people today who haven't slept since it happened, who want ICE out now, who don't like masked men on their streets, don't want their neighbors arrested, don't want families ripped apart. I've heard, too, not on the streets protesting, but in passionate notes in my inbox from people who want to see our immigration laws enforced legally and peacefully and with safety for all, including the officers who in many cases are also parents themselves. These are both deeply American sentiments. But our job now is maybe the most American thing of all. It's to find a way to live with people who are genuinely different from us, to try to be fair to them, and in doing so, to make things better and keep things decent. Because in America, no one else is going to do it for us. It's not my job to tell you what to think about what happened here yesterday, but I can tell you we owe our children a nation that is better than the one we live in today. And I can say that because we all know it's true. And that's another day in America. I'm Tony DeCopel in Minneapolis. I'll see you tomorrow from San Francisco. Good night.